Welcome to Podnastics. My name is Jakob Daniel, and along with my friend and co-host Christian Marsh, we interview gymnasts and let them tell their stories. From college-level gymnasts to Olympic stars, we're going to cover it all. This is Podnastics. Hey, welcome to Podnastics. My name is Jakob Daniel, and I am your host. And joining me in the studio today is my friend, who I will let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Christian Marsh, and I am excited to be joining you on Podnastics today.
Ah, my gosh. It's here. After a grueling 5-year process of trying to get this in and out of studio, I'm just BSing. Like I said, guys, my name is Jakob Daniel. Joining me today is one of my best friends, Christian Marsh, and we are excited to do the first episode of Podnastics and just introduce ourselves to not to each other, we know each other, to you guys. So we're gonna go into a very quick bio section, because Marsh is just so good at talking. I'm going to let him start. So, Marsh, thanks for coming on the show that you're also a host on. And I'm excited to get to know Christian Marsh.
I'm from Maryland, born and raised, Montgomery County specifically, and that's where also I, of course, went to gym. So I'm from Preston Gymnastics Academy. It's where I was from the time I was like 4 or 5 up until I graduated high school, and of course, I still go back and visit. Yeah, and from there, I went to William and Mary, where I was lucky enough to be recruited, which is a D1 school, varsity men's gymnastics, of course, in Williamsburg, Virginia. And so I entered in fall of 2018, finished undergrad in, spring of 2022, where I was once again lucky enough to be accepted into law school. So I am now at William and Mary Law School. Yeah, I did gymnastics my first year in law school. Would not recommend. But other than that, yeah, I'm just kicking. I'm a big gymnastics nerd. Registered judge now, I think for like the second or third year. Oh, actually, it's probably longer than that. But no, I'm really excited. I love talking about gymnastics and I love Jake, so this is a best of both worlds for me.
Yeah, when I started thinking about the idea of Podnastics, which I completely glossed over Podnastics and went straight to the bio, so I'll do a little bit about Podnastics real quick before we get to who the hell Jakob Daniel is. This show is something that I've had in the back of my mind for about 3 or 4 years now. I'm always looking for a chance for gymnasts to kind of like tell their stories, especially because we're in a sport that is like not as, we don't get as much attention as the bigger sports, especially when it comes to college and, especially when it comes to men's. So when I was finally really starting to put pen to paper and I really wanted to get this idea off the ground, my first thought was I needed a co-host who knew a little bit more about the technical side and was maybe even a little bit more passionate about the sport than I was. And my first thought was my good friend Marsh. I've known Marsh for about 4 or 5 years now. We met working at a gymnastics summer camp together. And I would say easily one of the quickest friendships of my life. We bonded immediately. And I'm just very excited to have you be a part of this podcast because I think you're going to bring an aspect to the table that I just couldn't.
Oh, thanks, man, and vice versa.
Marsh, you were a college level gymnast at William and Mary. How about you talk a little bit about that for a second, man? What was it like being a college level gymnast?
Yeah, college gymnastics was the best experience of my life. I do it 100 times over in 100 different lives. I taught, I was able to teach a whole lot. I learned even more. It's incredible. I would highly recommend it to anyone who is, debating it. If you're on the fence, college gymnastics is the best thing ever, to put it in as few words as I could.
And you were the captain. You were a captain one year, right?
I was. We did event captains for a while, so I was like a rings and pommel horse event captain. And then my senior year, I was team captain as well.
Yeah, tell us about that rings dismount, Marsh. It's one of my favorite things
Oh,
about you.
so my home gym had no pits, so I did not learn how to twist or dismount super well. And when it came time to upgrade my rings dismount, because I've always been pretty strong, I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna do a triple. And like, the normal thing that happens when you're a freshman in college and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go from a double back to a triple back is people laugh and then they're like, dude, just learn a full. And then after they watch me try and learn a full, they're like, actually, triple might be better for you. And so I started training that. And then, of course, COVID hit. And I managed to work back up to it and yeah, competed a triple back on rings for my junior, senior, and my fifth year.
Yeah, and those triple backs, they helped you get a Nintendo Switch, if I'm not wrong.
That is true. Yeah. So, NIL changed when I was like a senior in college, and I love Super Smash. So I wanted a Nintendo Switch to play to play Ultimate, and NIL changed, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna monetize my TikTok account. I'm gonna post some routines, and I'm gonna get just enough money to buy a Nintendo Switch, and then I'm gonna stop posting on TikTok. And my friends were like, this guy is being ridiculous, and it took me like. I'd say it took me like a week, 2 weeks of like posting seriously, and then I just got super lucky on the algorithm. Encanto came out, so I posted like a routine to one of the Encanto songs from Disney, and the routine like blew up. But there's like a limit on how many followers you need and views before you can monetize your TikTok account. So I had to post again, and the next week I posted a rings routine I did where I dismounted to a triple and did this like unnecessarily dramatic retelling of it, and it went like crazy viral. I think it got like 17 million views as of right now, and because of that I got enough views and likes and shares and stuff that I was able to and followers so that I was able to monetize my account. And I bought Smash, I bought a Nintendo Switch, and I bought one of the South Park games, and then fell off pretty hard.
All right, so and now finally, my last big question for you right now is why did you want to join Podnastics? I mean, besides the fact that I texted you and I was like, "Hey, I have a really great idea for us."
Yeah, no, I love men's gymnastics. I love promoting it in any way, shape, or form that I can. I've been really hands-on at times, especially when Mary actually lost her program while I was in undergrad, and I was very heavily involved in our reinstatement movement. I've done interviews about men's gymnastics. I've given presentations at schools. I am quite literally always looking for any excuse to talk about men's gymnastics because I think it is fantastic. I love gymnastics generally. Obviously, as a dude, I spent more time in men's gymnastics, but I've been learning a lot about women's gymnastics as well. And so this seemed like a fantastic opportunity to, in a sort of more casual and regular fashion, be able to talk about men's gymnastics, women's gymnastics, and connect with the community and spread the word just a little bit.
You're my hero, Christian Marsh. I'm gonna cut that. All right, man. Well, that was Christian Marsh. So I guess now we got to learn about me real quick. I'm not. I want a preference that I don't have the accolades that Marsh does. But gymnastics was a really big part of my life. One of my earliest memories is doing a mommy and me class and just really learning how to do like a forward roll. Growing up, my sister was a gymnast and my mom eventually became a coach, and I was just always in the gymnastics facility. I legitimately, yeah, so growing up, I was just always at the gym, whether it was for me or one of my siblings or my mom coaching. So I was just always exposed to, the gymnastics part of my life, and I loved it. At an early age, I knew I didn't want to be an Olympian. I didn't want to do college gymnastics. I just loved the sport in general. The atmosphere was really great at a young age. It was a very different sport, which also just happened to kind of help me out. I was kind of, a little bit of a different kid. I had dyslexia, I had ADD, and then I was also doing gymnastics. So I could not relate to half the kids in my class when they were talking about what they were talking about. But I loved competing gymnastics. It was a big part of my life from, like I said, my earliest memory to when I was 17. And I think I went through all the motions with gymnastics. I loved it when I was really young. I hated it for a moment of my life, but I refused to quit. I had teammates I really enjoyed. I had a teammate who bullied the crap out of me. I had a coach who I still look very fondly back on, and I had a coach who I didn't really like. And of course, I get a little older, and I'm probably like, okay, I probably didn't express to that guy that my intentions with leaving practice early wasn't because I was being lazy. It was because I didn't want to fail Spanish. But I ended up quitting my junior year. I had done level 10 for 2 years, and I kind of thought that was just it for me. Like I said, I never wanted to be a college level gymnast, but I had spent every summer of my life from age 9 to even like last year at a Flip Fest summer camp. And through that, I got to work with really awesome coaches, really awesome gymnasts and coworkers. And one aspect that I really loved about that experience was just hearing their stories and hearing them talk about what made them do the sport, what pushed them to go for their dreams and their goals. And it's been something that sat with me ever since I started doing podcasts and I started writing podcasts and I started editing podcasts, that this was an idea I always wanted to come back to. And when I met Marsh and we became really close friends and collaborators, it was something that I knew this would be a great first project for us to start on. And so I'm very excited for Podnastics to take off. We have our own goals with this show as well. We really want this to be something more than just an interview show. But, we want it to be a good interview show. We want our guests to come on and feel a level of vulnerability and a level of them being able to talk to us and tell their stories so our listeners, young or old, can relate to them. And if they're fans of them, they get to walk away with maybe something they didn't know about them. So we're very excited about Podnastics, and we can't wait to see where we go next from here. Speaking of next things, now you've heard me and Marsh's little sappy bios about each other. Now we're gonna ask each other 5 fun questions so you get to know a little bit about each other. Some more. The episode's called Meet the Host. Like I didn't, I don't know what you guys were hoping for. I'm gonna start. We'll go back and forth, but I'm gonna start. So Marsh, I gotta know, why do they call you the anime gymnast?
Oh my gosh, bro. When I was a freshman in college, we were at dinner after practice one night, and one of my upperclassmen, he was a senior, asked me something about an anime, and I just responded rather curtly for like no reason at all. I was probably grumpy about something silly, that I don't watch anime. And he, in very upperclassman, big brother way, was like, "Why'd you say it like that?" I was like, "I didn't say it like anything." And he was like, "Oh, dude, I bet you love anime." And so he took that. And then he told two of our more mischievous teammates who were juniors at the time, and they took it upon themselves to tell quite literally anyone that they could that I was just like the biggest anime fan on the planet. And it was like annoying for a bit because strangers, like they were doing this, like not just to like gymnasts, they were doing it to like random people in class. People like they just be like, "Oh, dude, we have this one teammate who's super into anime. It's Christian Marsh, if you ever see him. Yeah, just so you know." And it stayed pretty insular, like just at William and Mary. But there was this show called the Gymnastics Network, I believe. And it like it was two NCAA athletes who would then watch and commentate on the meets during COVID. And one of those athletes I hosted on a recruiting trip. And at one point during the recruiting trip, apparently they told him that I was super into anime. And so he then got on, his show before the entire nation of men's gymnastics. And while commentating one of my routines, and this is like 3 years later, went, "Yeah, big anime guy." And his co-host responds with, "Really?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, apparently he's like a really big anime fan." And that is when it became national. And like literally ever since then, it's been like 8 years. Like, it's been like 7, 8 years. People will ask me about like being super into anime. And it is stuck. It is unshakable. I have nothing against anime, but I've only ever seen like two or three. But that is that story in its entirety.
Well, I can't remember if you told me that or if Reed Ross told me that you were big into anime. I legitimately can't remember, but I do remember as soon as I heard the story, I was laughing my butt off about it.
No, it's hilarious. Like John Irwin, who is a senior at William Mary,
Great guy.
one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. But first time I met him, he very innocently was like trying to, just start conversation. He's like, you like anime, right? And I was like, who put you up to this? Because like he was about to be a freshman on our team, so I assumed someone had reached out to him to mess with me. And the face he made of like fear and shock because he had also just heard about it on Gymnastics Network.
Well, it's a fun little moniker for you to have because you're just really into anime.
It's hilarious. I love it now. I think it's super funny. Like you got to respect an 8-year bit, you know?
An 8-year bit that will go on for the rest of your life.
All right, Jake. I got an easier one for you first. What
Okay.
is your favorite competition memory?
Uh okay, I have a really good story. So as I said earlier, I was very I don't want to say mediocre. I was in the middle in gymnastics. I had my events that I really liked, and I had events that were just really hard for me. And the hardest one for me was pommel horse. I don't know what it was. I just never was able to master it. Even all the way at level 10, I was still struggling with it. But when I was level 9, I had a kid on my team who was probably like and once again, we're grown up now. I understand that, it's just teenagers being teenagers, but I mean like he tried to get a reaction out of me every day at practice. Like he would bring up my dyslexia, he would bring up him being better at events than I was, and I mean it was the most annoying part of my day. So anyway, we're all level 9s. I have a terrible pommel horse routine. I cannot recite it to you. It was not as bad as I'm making it out to be, but I do want to admit one thing. My dismount for pommel horse, and at least to level 10, was just a circle off. I I could not ever get my hand placements right anywhere, and I was like, I'm just gonna circle off. It's whatever. And so I'd always lose pommel horse to people, and so it's like one of our first major meets. I've competed my pommel horse routine, which wasn't that big, and my other teammates have much more complicated skills they're doing. And I'm like, whatever. I've never gotten a first place on pommel horse. I didn't think I was going to get one. And then we go to the results and we're all waiting. And they go, okay, level 10 or level 9, ages so to so. In third place, we got this guy. And I was like, oh, he got third place? Okay. But they say the score, and I'm like, I think my score was higher than that. And then they go to second place, and the kid who was always a jerk to me got called up. And I was like, wait a minute, like 13-8. I scored higher than and then they say it. Jakob Daniel, first place, pommel horse. For how high can you go in gym? I have not watched a gymnastics competition in a minute. You can go to 15, right?
I think maybe when we were that young, and the start values were higher.
Yes, they were higher. I think I got like 14-2. And I mean, I got up, I was laughing, and like my whole team is laughing. My coach is just clapping. I get up there. I received my first place medal on pommel horse. And of course, we walk off and he under his breath was like, all he did was a circle off. Are you kidding me? And that was the best reward of all time was the fact that it was the worst pommel horse routine and I got first place on it.
That is fantastic. That's a good one.
It's a triumphant moment, where you're just, and you know what? I went to practice the next day. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna finally get good at pommel horse. And I just want to say I never did, but it was motivational.
That's awesome, man.
All right. Okay, so here's a question for you, Marsh. What's your biggest gymnastics hot take?
Oh, that's a fantastic one for me. This is also the second time I've been asked for some hot takes this week. I don't like low scoring, like at all. I'm super okay with high E scores.
Yeah, I think
And
everybody should get a 10 to make themselves feel good.
exactly, participation tens. No, but it's like I guess the clearest example to me is like rings at elite finals. I watch these routines and I genuinely do not believe they can be done any physically better by a human. And then the judges take about a point. I mean, and that's just how it goes. Is like consistently it cost you about 1 point to do your routine, and then they take deductions for like, just actual mistakes from then on. And so I understand the, like the message and this constant pursuit of perfection and how it is not attainable, but along the way we find excellence. That message is not lost on me, don't get me wrong. But, sometimes I watch someone do something just about as physically at like well as it can be done. And I'm I think that should be rewarded with just about a perfect execution score. At what point are we just like assigning, deductions to things? I don't know, to make the judges feel smart. But I say as a judge, right? But that's just me. There are plenty of times where I watch something and I'm like, I think that could have been like a 9-4 E and he still would have won and it would have like felt more reflective of the job that was done.
Yeah, no, that was some pretty solid input, and especially I understood that for someone who hasn't really followed competition scoring for a minute now.
And I just think it looks weird when you're like, when, anyone else watches a routine and they're like, whoa, that was literally perfect. Like, what do you mean they lost a point and a half? Like, so I'm not saying we need to start throwing tens, but I would not mind if we started getting closer. I think we are judging more difficult than gymnastics has gotten better, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Um, anyways, for your second question, Jake, this is a fun one. I like to ask people if so, the United States, we are going to host the Olympics in LA in 2028. And so, if you could pick any other country to host the Olympics, what country would it be and why?
Dude, that's a hard one because I'm trying to think of like a country we haven't hosted it in. Oh my gosh, man. When anyone ever brings up like countries and traveling, I always say Japan, but we literally just had an Olympics there. A year late, but we just had an Olympics there. Oh my gosh. Have we had an Olympics in Chile yet?
I don't know off the top of my head, actually.
Oh my God. I'm gonna say Chile just because every other state that I would say, or not state, every other country I could say, I think we've already had an Olympics there. I'm thinking Japan, I'm thinking Australia, I'm thinking Rio, I'm thinking China. You know what? South Korea would be cool. That would actually be really cool, especially with the fact that like one thing I love about the Olympics is when they pull from like the culture. Obviously with Japan, they did all the anime characters. I remember the Beijing Olympics and their mascots were so cool at a young age. Rio de Janeiro, I loved the graphics they had. So to see what South Korea would do would be very interesting. I'm sure they would do a lot of K-pop with theirs as well.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. I feel like some African countries as well that haven't hosted before could do a really good job.
Okay, Marsh, I want you to rank the six events of men's gymnastics in favoritism for you. So
Oh, for me
from
personally,
yeah, so from like what you don't like to what's your favorite event.
oh, my favorite event to train is probably pommel horse. I think pommel horse is a lot of fun. I have had this unfortunate thing where I am built like a ninja turtle, so I've got a big old back, and it does not in like these huge lats, and it makes it a little difficult for me to get my hands behind me. So my horse does not look the prettiest, but I don't fall, so I'll take that one. I competed college horse for like 5 years, like, I guess 4.5. I got taken off of lineup when I was a freshman for looking bad, not falling. I'll put that on the record. I think, yeah, so I competed horse, I don't even know, probably like 40, 50 times in college, and I fell off the horse, I think twice. And it's really fun to train, just throw skills on horse. They're not like super dangerous relative to the other events. And so horse, rings, on a good day with rings, I feel like I am just like floating. Like just playing against gravity, and that's just like a cool feeling. Parallel bars is also up there. I think B bars is so much fun. Floor, and then I'm terrible at high bar. I am probably one of the worst high bar athletes you'll ever meet.
Yeah, I've
I think
heard
it's
that
because
about
I'm
you.
so good at no, and you should. All right, there are tales, but it's just like not natural to me as a rings guy. My shoulders don't don't open that well. for some of the taps, and I don't fully understand the way the bar bounces. But high bar has been fun at times. I think vault is just one of the worst events to train ever. It's just so much repeated full effort. Like it takes like years to add like a single half twist to a vault skill. And like sometimes I have a day where I land every vault, and then I'll have days where I miss every vault. And I'm like sick. I feel like I made a net change of zero.
Then why is vault the best event? The
You
best event for
know?
everybody.
Jacob
Look, I
might be
get
a
it. I
little
get it. You're
biased.
not Asher Hong, okay, bud.
Absolutely not, dude. He's nuts. But
He
Jacob
would
might be a little biased because he's got a very sick vault that he can still do somehow. That's actually one of my first memories of Jake is at Flip Fest, the camp, is like him ripping his shirt off in the middle of the gym, tearing down the runway and hitting the cause full. I was like, just it was crazy. It was very cool. But no,
yeah,
I am not that good at vault.
I had to stop doing that because I was getting in trouble, not not for ripping the shirt off, but because I'm pretty sure when I did that I was at least 23, and you're not supposed to do gymnastics. It was like towards the end of the summer. Like, I had gotten a nod of approval from one of the owners to do it just to showcase that I could still do a cos full. Yeah, I'm a little biased. I loved vault. Vault was easily my favorite event. But every gymnast is different. Kind of the point of this podcast. So yeah, that was a very interesting list. I would make a change, but I completely get where you're coming from.
I want to hear your go-to hype song. Like if you were getting ready to fight a dinosaur, like bare knuckle brawl, what do you listen to get ready?
Oh my gosh. I feel bad because I've been asking you a bunch of gymnastics questions and I keep getting fun ones. Except for that Olympics one. That felt like a setup. Gosh, anytime that I think about a fight, I just naturally think of the Freebird guitar solo. If I had to get into a fight right now, it would probably be Serious Steel by Masaru Yokoyama. It's from a TV show called Mashal, and it's just like this. It's an orchestra. It's a very hype rap orchestra song that it feels like it belongs in a rock. It feels like it belongs in one of the Creed movies where he's already lost once, but now he gets to train with Rocky, and it's like this is when they bring in the rapper to do the one song on the soundtrack. Yeah, I'd probably have to go with Serious Steel. Or the Freebird guitar solo. That would probably be in the point where I'm like, I've been knocked on my butt. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna give up, and then it goes, Freebird, and then I'm back.
Freebird goes crazy. That's a good answer.
All right, Marsh. Here's a fun one. What's your fascination with Power Rangers?
I like all things superhero. I just think they're fun. I just think it's fun. And so that was like probably like one of my first exposure to like superhero type people. I very vividly remember watching Power Rangers Dino Thunder and Power Rangers Dino Storm. I haven't watched either in a very long time, but I'll listen to the theme songs every now and then. The Power Rangers Dino Thunder theme song goes crazy, and I watched Mystic Force. I also have a lot of younger siblings. I'm the oldest of four. Three of us are boys, so I probably watched like every series of Power Rangers from the time I was a child, and I'm 7 years older than my youngest brother. So, but I probably spent like 10 years minimum watching Power Rangers. So I think it's fun. I'm also super easily entertained, clearly.
I was gonna say, I think the fact that we both had a love for Power Rangers in our childhood was one of the first things we really bonded over.
Yeah, no, it's fun to talk about, just like silly stuff that doesn't matter like that.
I don't know why. Growing up, I was just like, man, a team that's color coordinated. This is awesome. There's a blue guy every season. Wow.
I Something tickles my brain just right about the fact that they all wear their Ranger colors when they're not in their Ranger suits as well. Just like, oh yeah, that's the red guy. Of course he's wearing the red t-shirt. It works on a very primitive level.
I had a coach growing up in gymnastics who was a big anime fan, and I remember um I remember he was super into gymnastics, and it's very funny looking back on that coach because at the time when I was like 5, I thought he was really old, and he was probably just like 23 or 24. But I remember he was like pitching, like he was like Power Rangers is great because you guys are kind of like Power Rangers, like they flip over their bad guys, and you guys can barely do a handstand, and I was like, yes, I I could take a bullet right now. You're so right, Weston. The
Absolutely.
the mentality of a 7-year-old is crazy. I remember he showed me a clip of Dragon Ball one time from when like Kid Goku was training, and I'm like, "What? I do push-ups every day. I could take a bullet." And I thought it too. I was like, "Man, I'm strong. I can do 10 pull-ups. I could fight anyone right now."
You should have tested it.
I should have.
All right, Jacob. This one an easy one to make up for the Olympics question. You more of a morning person or a night owl?
Oh my gosh, man. I'm in the middle. My peak is like 5 p.m. No, I'm a night owl. I think I'm saying this at 27 years old. I'm like torn between this question because I start my day at like 7 a.m. and during most weeknights I go to bed at like 11 if I'm lucky enough to like drift into unconsciousness. But I would say a night owl. Especially during the summers, I'm a night owl. That's a hardcore. Okay, we're waking up at 7 a.m. and if we go to bed by 5, so be it.
That's a I don't even know if that counts. That's crepuscular. Like active between the hours of twilight and dawn. That's crazy.
Now, dude, you just got to be on that Edward Cullen, You got to be on that Edward Cullen grind, just full vampire hours.
This is the skin of a killer Bella.
What is the coolest part of being in law school? Like, you did okay, actually, you know what? Not much of a question. I mean, it is a question, but talk about that internship you did for a second. And maybe the famous gymnast who helped you get that internship.
Oh, dude, which one? The gymnastics community has been so helpful to me. I think in particular, Jake is referring to an internship I did after my first year of law school with Project X Entertainment. It's a production company based in North Hollywood. And yeah, so I served as like a creative intern there, more so, where I was like reading books and scripts that were submitted that they were looking at potentially turning into movies. And from there, I'd like, write a report on what was good, like who would be ideal casting, summaries, so on and so forth. And then I would also have meetings with the with one of the co-CEOs who was a lawyer, and he'd, tell me about the business. That was a fantastic opportunity. They made Abigail, if anyone saw that. Great, a great
I
movie.
I was gonna literally bring up the fact that Marsh was in those meetings where they were pitching Abigail, or if they had already started
They were
production on.
casting it. Yeah, both. Yeah.
I saw that
So
movie. I saw that movie in theaters, and I texted you, and I was like, "Dude, I just saw Abigail." And Marsh just casually was like, "Yeah, that was the movie I got to be like in the Zoom meetings for." It made me
yeah, it
very
was really cool.
jealous because I have a love for movies and television, and I really want to get into it one day. And Marsh got to have a really great conversation with a gymnastics guy who was able to pivot him to Project X. That's the name, right? The studio.
Yeah, and yeah, Project X is the studio, and so they also made the Scream movies with some of the Scream movies with Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera. If y'all are familiar with that, and so the whole thing started though because I was coming back from Flip Fest, so I was there for 2, 3 weeks, and I spoke to Olympian Chris Waller, and he asked me to tell him about myself, and I did. I mentioned that I studied government, but I also really like to write. I got a minor in creative writing, and that year specifically, I had been recognized for a screenplay that I wrote. And he was like, "Oh, if you like screenwriting, then like I have a friend from college who now owns a production company." And he put me in touch with yeah, the CEO who then uh, let me intern for a summer. So that was a really really cool gig, and I'm super grateful for it.
It's one of my favorite stories you get to tell. So I felt like this was a great podcast to put the little spotlight on my little buddy over here.
Thanks, man. All right. And funnily enough, I also have a Power Rangers question for you.
Okay, okay.
I know, I know. What are your three favorite series?
Dude, that is a really tough one. Wild Force, Lost Galaxy, and Zeo. That is um I don't know. Those were the shows that I watched as a kid, and it's funnily enough, I used to have a ton of the VHS tapes that I have like given away to, younger family members and cousins and neighbors. Yeah, no, those three growing up were great. I can't believe you asked me that question. I thought we were joking when you were like, "Oh, I might ask you a Power Rangers
No,
question."
I was so serious.
Haha. All right, guys. Well, five questions down, man. We're wrapping up this first episode. It feels very quick. I know we're probably at like the 35-minute marker now. During these last minutes, I'm gonna throw it back to Marsh and myself real quick to just kind of give our final thoughts on this first episode, what we want to do with our first season of Podnastics, and any final notes. So, Marsh, what you gotta say?
So yeah, Jacob, I'm excited to meet some of these guests, talk a little gymnastics. I love talking shop, and more than that, I'm just no excited for the ability to shine a spotlight on some cool athletes, some cool people, and some cool routines.
Very nice. Like I've said, I think once or twice on the podcast already. Podnastics for me was an idea for a chance for gymnasts, Olympian, college, gym act, to be able to come on the show and just have an outlet for them to tell us their stories. I believe every gymnast has a unique story that deserves to have it deserve every gymnast has a story that deserves to be told from their perspective. And I'm excited to bring on a lot of close friends onto the show. I'm excited to bring on a couple people I don't know as well. And I'm just excited to get through the hurdles so me and Marsh can have a great vibe with the show for future episodes. And I know this first episode seems a little clunky. Believe it or not, I did have everything written out on a piece of paper and I just jumped around because I'm just very excited for this opportunity me and Marsh have been given by us. We gave each other this opportunity because this is a self-funded podcast. We're taking sponsors, by the way. So on that note, I'm Jakob Daniel,
I'm Christian Marsh.
and this was Podnastic.